Welcome everyone to the Anita Stewart Memorial Food Lab at the University of Guelph. With our special guest today, we have Chef Jason Bangerter with us this afternoon. So the Anita Stewart Memorial Food Lab is a teaching kitchen and event space at the University of Guelph. It is named after Anita Stewart, and for those of you who don't know, Anita was the inaugural University of Guelph Food Laureate, and she helped to push the Canadian culinary scene forward with her work as a food writer, a culinary historian, and a founder of Food Day Canada. We honor her legacy through events like Deep Dish Dialogues, which shares stories of Canadian food and the people behind it. So I am one of your co-hosts today. My name is Emily Robinson, and I'm the Food Education Manager and Academic Advisor here in the School of Hospitality at the University of Guelph. And I'll be working with Jason and Mark today, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Mark Holmes. I'm an associate professor in the School of Hospitality, Food and Tourism Management. Wonderful to be here and to watch this demonstration today. Now, before we get going today, we would like to acknowledge that we are in the Anita Stewart Food Lab, which is located at the University of Guelph, and that we reside on the lands of the Attawandaron people and the treaty lands of the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, these gathering places are home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We offer our respect to them as our Indigenous neighbors, as we believe that acknowledging them reminds us of our connection to these lands and the ancestors that we live and work with.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'll give Jason a bit of an introduction here. So notably an influential leader in the culinary industry, Chef Jason Bangerter's career spans nationally and internationally, working alongside some of the world's greatest chefs. Chef Jason's unbridled passion for excellence is fueled by his dedication to supporting and developing sources for sustainable, responsibly produced ingredients. He has successfully crafted a talented team that shares his philosophy and vision. Living by example, he is equally proud of his role as an innovator and a mentor, continuing to have a profound effect on Canada's culinary scene. Langdon Hall Country House Hotel and Spa welcomed executive chef Jason Bangerter in 2013, and Chef Jason's philosophies have grown since then by creating a true taste of place, with a focus on the freshest and most flavorful ingredients on the property and surrounding farms. And if you've ever had a chance to visit Langdon Hall, it's just breathtaking. You often see the chefs out in the gardens picking things for service for the day. Just a true embodiment of what taste of place really means. So I've given you a bit of an introduction, but Jason, if you could please tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of your journey to becoming the leader that you are today.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm very excited to share with you these recipes. The two recipes that I'm going to prepare today are actually featured in our new cookbook, Langdon Hall, a cookbook, which was just released in April. And they have stories, and typically when I develop dishes and I design the cuisine, you're right, like it is about a taste of place. And I can tell you, for those of you that have not been to Langdon Hall, that place is something special. It's magical. We have our own gardens. I brought some of the garden today to share with you all. And we're going to incorporate this into the recipes. And then also, you know, so a bit about me. I was born in Toronto. We moved to Milton, which was a farm town when I was little. I went to school there. We grew up in Milton. I decided that I wanted to be a chef at the end of high school, and I went to George Brown College and did my full complete program there, and started work at the King Edward Hotel, which at the time was #1 in the city of Toronto. And I had a great mentor there named John Higgins, which some of you may be familiar with and know him. I know you do,
Yep,
for sure.
Very well.
And I had a 5-year apprenticeship, worked there, and then went overseas. And I worked in Europe. I worked in London, in France, in Germany, in Switzerland, and came back to Toronto and worked with Michael Bonaccini and Peter Oliver. And I was in the city for about 13 years, and someone had said, you know, I really think this place, Langdon Hall, would be a perfect fit. And when I arrived there, I was blown away. It was so special and magical to have all these things, to have our own gardens. It's 75 acres, wild produce, you name the wild ingredient, it grows there. Biodiversity is key, and it's exciting, and the terroir is just delicious. And that's what we're going to feature today, is a bit of that terroir with also some other bits of my trap.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So the first dish I'm going to prepare is actually on, if you have the book, it's on page 45, and it is a cure. So it's kind of like preserving fish, but not taking it to the point where are the first people to preserve, where they would salt something to the point where it was dry, like a piece of cardboard, and then rehydrate it later on down the year to consume. We're doing the process of the cure, which is salt and sugar with aromatics, and we're doing it for a short period of time, anywhere from 3 minutes to 24 hours, so that you're still having the texture and the beauty of the flesh of the fish that we're using, but you're imparting some of the flavor. And in this case, the terroir, we're going to use all these ingredients. So I'm going to start with some sugar and salt, and I go 2 parts sugar, 1 part salt, and this is what's going to create the cure. And then spices. So one thing every year in the garden we discuss, or the gardener and I discuss in the winter, what are we going to plant the next year? And each year it's something a little bit different. There's always the things that we love and the things that we always want to do. But then, we'll talk about spice. Let's focus on spice this year. Let's focus on mustard seed and coriander seed and dill and fennel pole and all these things. We're not in a place where we have citrus growing typically. So let's look at citrus plants. So now we have all these beautiful citrus plants. We have geranium and lemongrass and verbena, and that we're going to use those. We're going to impart those things into the cuisine today. Now, I'm not opposed to using things that aren't from our province or our terroir. I do use lemons, and one of my favorite ingredients is truffles, right? And we don't have those in Ontario. Right. But so what I'm doing here is I'm taking some coriander and some peppercorn and some lemongrass and some lime leaf. And maybe if you guys want to go, you can help me out actually. Why don't you take those scissors and grab a couple of different piece of lemongrass. If you want to run around, grab a couple leaves off the ginger here. And we'll get some things going for aromatics. That's funny, that's great, thanks. And the nice thing about this cooking and this having these gardens and these things around for me to play with, and people always say, well, why is it important? Why is it important to eat locally, and what is the difference? And I can tell you honestly, the flavor, the quality is what really stands out. For me, I trained in Europe, and the first thing I did when I came back from overseas was try to create the things. I wanted to be the best French chef in Toronto. Right. So all the things I used in France and all the things I used in London and in Europe, I tried to import it. Mm-hmm. And when it arrived, it was terrible. Yeah. Right? It was the quality was not there, and that's kind of where it got to the point where I realized, okay, well, I have to focus on what's close to home. I have to focus on what's in my backyard and the farm down the street. Mm-hmm. And immediately, the quality was there. It was incredible. The flavors, the intensity. Like even now, taking something that's living off the branch and putting it in here, the amount of flavor and the life force that's in that ingredient. When you, oh my gosh, but can you imagine if this is something that was harvested and put in a truck for 10 days, right, across the country? Yeah. It's dying every minute. It's not on the plant. And it's the same thing with fish or anything along those lines. The fresher you can get it, the better. Right.
So what did it kind of mean to you? Like you said, you trained a lot in Europe, and you kind of, were trying to be the best French chef in Toronto. What did it mean to you to then kind of become a Canadian chef and kind of develop, like you said, that taste of place in Canada? And how did you kind of, take that journey from your training in Europe and apply it to the way your cuisine is today?
Well, I think that, I learned skills all around. I think that those lessons about quality. Thanks, Phil. I think the lessons about that kind of realization that, oh my gosh, like why am I worrying about this when I have this? You have to learn about what's available to you. You have to, and then you have to appreciate it and understand. Like for me, the number one, the key factor is quality. Yeah. Like everything that we want to produce, I want it to be the best that anyone's ever had. If I'm going to give you a plate of carrots, I want you to leave the dining room saying that was the best carrot I think I've ever tasted, or maybe I don't even know what carrots taste like after that. Like what have I been eating? Right? That's always the goal. And we even go so far as to take something that's really great and we study and we pull it apart and we discuss it as a management team. And Philippe, my sous chef who's here, can attest. Like we'll find that same carrot from 5 different farmers from around the area in 100 kilometers. We'll take them and then we'll prepare it one way. We'll cook it in its own juice. We'll grill it. We'll roast it. We'll bake it like a potato in foil, right? And then we'll eat them and see how it performs the best.
It's kind of a study of flavor.
Right, exactly. And then we'll take that and we'll blow it up even more, trying to concentrate it.
Wow.
You know, so this is really, right now, I'm just taking all of these different ingredients, and so just to let you know what's in here, is the salt, the sugar, the spices that I described, lemon verbena, geranium, lemongrass, some lime leaf. We have some ginger leaf as well. And then I'm going to take, let me see here, some citrus, just to give it a bit more of that citrusy punch.
So when you are sourcing, like you said, you like to focus as local as possible, but when you do source things, like of course you use citrus because it adds so much flavor.
Sure.
How do you kind of go about selecting, how to get the best ingredients when they are traveling overseas?
Well, I think it comes down to, one thing I've learned in this industry is it's really important to connect with people that care about the products as much as you do.
Right.
I think that's the key, is really sourcing from someone who has the same beliefs, the same motivation, the same passion. Like, I'm passionate about food. I'm passionate about the things that I'm creating. I don't want to go through a triple person, the third guy. I go for my fish. I go straight to the fisher person, the fisher, right? I get I'm getting the connection, and I'm finding someone who can explain to me what's special about the way they do it, their source, their harvesting. Is it seasonal? Are they respecting the product every step of the way until it arrives to my door? And that's exactly what it is.
Right.
Even something like truffles. I am connected to a family in Puglia, and on Sunday I say I want 2 kilos, and on Wednesday it's at the airport and coming to me. Wow. It's not. I'm not, because I know that the quality is there. Yeah. Right. It's all about quality, and then making sure that the supply is also someone that respects the product and the source.
Yeah, so kind of a value.
The process.
Relationship, really.
Absolutely.
We have this beautiful bounty in Canada when it comes to products we can access in the summer. How do you deal with winter and inability to get some of those things?
Well, again, I think it's making those relationships. The one thing I noticed when I moved from Toronto, being a Toronto chef, to being out in this region, is that the ingredients out here are so much better, but we don't see them in Toronto. Right. So I think there's a lot more connections to farmers here and to the source here. And you can get you're more in tune with that kind of smaller scale, more artisanal, which is better quality. And there's a lot of greenhouses in the area. So, the cuisine obviously changes when you go from summer to winter. And that's exciting too, with braising and preserving and pickling and doing a lot of root vegetables. So everything just kind of, it works out. And we are connected with, organizations like 100 Kilometer Foods. Right, where they're a co-op of farms that are giving to this supplier that then delivers to the restaurant. So there's lots of great ways for us to be able to be creative and have amazing ingredients all year long. So I'm going to take some of this here, and I want to just pass this around for everyone to smell, like just to give everybody an idea what we're doing here.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's just amazing.
And then this is really simply, we're just going to take this cure that we put together and lay it in this pan. And this is pretty simple. I also wanted to do recipes that I knew people could do at home and wouldn't be afraid to try, like all of these ingredients pretty much that are in the book. And listen, if you don't have the lemongrass and the geranium and you can't source these things, just the citrus is fine as well, right? And then in the fridge here, I have a piece of Albacore Tuna. Now, Albacore Tuna, a lot of people aren't familiar with it. People are familiar with, the big red, the purple kind of sushi, sashimi tuna, which, because of its popularity, is quite often on the endangered species list and not recommended. This is a sustainable source of tuna, which is not familiar to everyone, right? It doesn't have that bright pink color. It's a bit more of a beigey, like a pink hue. It's a smaller fish, but this species I think has way more flavor. Okay. And especially now it's a time of year, it's in season. they're gorging on those fatty fish like sardines and mackerel and all that tasty stuff.
Yeah.
And this is the only time this fisherman fishes it. So yes, I use frozen seafood, right? Because he gets this when it's at its peak, and that's what we use all year long when we're using this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about kind of, sourcing things locally, and you have the gardens for produce for a lot of that, and kind of local farmers and those sorts of things. So when it comes to sourcing things like meat and fish, what are the kind of things that you look for to, like you said, ensure that it's going to be sustainable and that the fisher?
That's the thing, right? I do the research, right? You have in a lot of cases, I'm lucky now that I have a reputation that those people look for me,
right?
Because they want their products in a great place and someone who's going to appreciate it and take care of it. But I think, what some chefs don't realize is it's a lot of hard work. It is, especially when I was focusing on this was 15 years ago, right? So to find those sources, it took a bit of effort. And then when you find those sources, you want to verify that they are what they say they are, and you have to ask the questions. You have to hold people accountable, right? Now this is a beautiful piece of fish. I'm just going to take a little bit of the scraps off here. These scraps, what we would do is we would make sauces with that and different things, and you can just see like this beautiful flesh. And it's very neutral flavor, but it has that really fatty, like omega, really delicious. And this, on its own, is fantastic. But when you add, I'm just making it small enough to sit in my pan here. When you add those flavors from the garden, all those citrus flavors that I've just shared with you around the room, we put this in here, like so, right? And top it up. And that can sit, the longer you let this cure, the more moisture will be drawn out of the fish, and the more of the flavor of the aromatics will go into the flesh. And even like smaller species of fish like fluke or types of sole from the East Coast that are a bit more tiny, like a tiny flatfish, it actually, they get to the texture almost like a gummy bear sometimes, right? So it kind of tastes like a little cured fish gummy, but it has that beautiful flavor of the fish and that nice cure. But in this case, we're just going to do a few minutes, and we're going to pull it off, and it's going to have the flavors, and that's all we're looking for. Because we still want to have kind of like that sashimi type texture of the fish.
Yeah. So for those who maybe aren't as familiar with, the process of curing, how would, obviously you're just sitting it in a kind of sugar and salt and letting it sit for a while with those herbs and things in there as well. So how is this going to be texturally a very different product to just cooking the fish? Why is that curing step something that you like to do instead?
Because I really, when you have a special piece of fish, I like even, I don't know, maybe it's my maturity and my time cooking and what I like, right? But like, I really want to feature the delicacy of the fish. I really want, if you stick this in a pan or you grill it, you're still going to be delicious. It really changes the texture of the fish, right? This way, the texture of the fish stays natural,
right?
And it's luscious, it's juicy, and then it's just got that little bit of seasoning that's sweet and sour or sweet and salty with the aromatics.
Nice, beautiful.
You talked about trying to verify that things are local or that they're sustainable. So what systems do you look for when you're looking for that?
Well, we use a system for seafood and lake fish specifically called OceanWise, right? And that's a national program that is not-for-profit that connects businesses and chefs with sustainable sources of seafood. Right, and I think that and you can even get that in the grocery store. If you see that OceanWise certification on packaging in like our local markets, that is an indication that it's something that's being harvested responsibly. The livestock are being respected, and the process is something that you can feel good about, and it's a good choice.
Yeah, so kind of looking for that label as a consumer would be
100% what I do. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm looking for Canadian product always. Lake fish, ocean fish. I spent a lot of time on the East Coast when I was a kid. My mom's from Nova Scotia. So I kind of always have lobster on the menu somewhere. I always have kind of an homage to my heritage as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So So this is, we have one that's already cured. So I'll pull that out. I'm gonna build the dish now. We had a couple of other little things that we pulled out for this dish. Again, taking some of the citrus and doing like some candy. We've cooked some of the lime leaf from the plants here and made it into a powder. I've taken some of these ingredients, the geranium, the lemongrass, lemon juice, and jam.
Oh, beautiful.
And then all the plants, we've made a juice as well.
Wow.
So these are a little bit more complicated and take a bit more time to make. So
Yeah.
I brought those prepared.
That's fantastic.
So once this is, it does look a little bit more dry,
Yeah.
right? But you have that nice flavor from all those plants. And it has just enough salt. You know, you have this beautiful, look at how pretty that is,
Wow.
right?
Beautiful.
I mean, this is the way I like to eat fish. I mean, yes, like I said, I like it. I like it grilled, and I love pan roasted. But I'm finding now the process we discussed, like with the carrots. When we get a piece of fish in and we test it all a whole bunch of different ways, it's always best natural.
Yeah. Oh, that's natural.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And even with things like with scallops, sea scallops. Right now we're cooking them actually sous vide, like in a vacuum bag in a very low temperature water bath, and it's just this flavor of the ocean, and the texture is so clean and beautiful. And when I put it in a pan or I grill it, it's not the same experience.
Yeah. So with all these other beautiful elements that you have with the dish, so these types of additions, are they really kind of, inspired by the herbs that you threw the fish in? Is it just...
Yeah, this is
how
all,
do you kind of
everything
come up
here
with
is kind of connected to everything. Like this,
Right,
all
kind of
the only thing that doesn't belong here is the fish.
Right.
Right?
Just using all those things to
You know,
add to
and
it.
if you want it to be super hyper local, you could do the exact same thing with a piece of trout.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
it's
yeah. Wow.
yeah, and this is just some cucumbers that have been cut with our little Parisian scoops, and then again just mixed with some of the juice. And it's all those things that you would like, I think, with seafood. You know, a little bit of lemon, some fresh cucumber, right? And then all the little herbs that we have that are here, and a few more I brought along. We have right now in the garden, and this is also what's so special about Langdon Hall and what we have at our fingertips is we have all of our spices and everything that's coming to life, like cilantro, coriander flowers.
Right.
You can't buy those in the grocery store,
No,
right? Because everything's harvested before it gets to this point.
Right.
In our garden, everything goes to flower, everything goes to seed. So, you know, there might be a flower that's available for a week, and you'll see it on the dishes, and it's gone. And then that's that taste of place.
Yeah. That
Right?
kind of hyper seasonality of it.
You're not going to see that anywhere else unless they have a garden like Langdon Hall.
Right. Beautiful.
You know, so these, and then again, it's like all these fresh. How was that cured? Doesn't that smell amazing? Did you guys everybody get a little sniff of the cure? So that's the magic. It's the place. You know, another herb, and a lot of this stuff too is actually natural pesticide in the garden. So like this geranium, the citronella, like these things keep away pests that will be eating the things we want to harvest.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, geranium, marigold is another one. Gem marigold.
So I know you talked about working with the gardener and, deciding what to plant for the next season. Is that, do you kind of take into account, like you said, plants that kind of work in a symbiotic relationship and kind of help each other grow?
Absolutely, yeah. Jeremy, our gardener, would be the best one to speak to about that. I mean, he's constantly moving things around pots and, definitely trying to improve the soil every year.
Right.
Keep it enriched and...
have its own
kind of
ecosystem.
regenerative farming is what we're trying to do. And then so I mean, this is pretty much a finished dish.
Beautiful. I love how simple it is, but everything's so important in there. All the little pieces.
We don't get and that's the thing, right? It is very much about. I mean, this is as fussy as I get.
Yeah.
Right. It's very much about the ingredients and letting them sing and shine on their own.
Yeah.
We get that beautiful preserve,
Wow.
right? And you think, you see some plants and some fish, and you're not expecting something so special. But when you're just taking those ingredients and being creative and thinking, okay, how do I incorporate that into the dish? How do I bring all those punches of flavor and citrus and garden and plant, by making a powder and making a jam, but it's all the same things.
Yeah.
Right. So when you eat this, it just makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then we would finish that at the table with just a little bit of this juice.
Wow.
Just like that. And that's the first dish.
That's stunning. So you talked. So you talked a lot about all these kind of different little ingredients, and I wonder, in your vast experience, do you have one ingredient that you? Do you have one ingredient in particular that is kind of your favorite ingredient that you would over the years you just really admire it?
I mean, I love everything.
Yeah. Fair enough.
That's delicious.
Putting you on the spot for sure.
I would say the ingredient I use the most is probably onion.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
Fair enough.
I can honestly say that almost every single recipe has some kind of onion component into it when it's savory food.
Yeah.
So I would say since I use that the most, it would probably be one of my favorite things because that is the building blocks for a lot of great sauces and stews. And
I love that, and such like a humble ingredient too.
now on the opposite end of the humble ingredient, I really like truffles.
Right. Yes.
And I think that's just because of my experience in Europe and my first signature dish, which was a truffle soup. Right. Which was inspired by a chef I worked with in London.
And that's still on the menu, isn't it?
It is on the menu. It's in the book too, yeah.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So someone in Toronto wanted to source out truffles. Where would they go?
I think, since I go straight to Italy, you just got to source out a truffle supplier. But no, I think specialty shops. Yeah. Like in Toronto, I think you could probably get them at the Cheese Boutique, or I think around town too. I think Vincenzo's may have fresh truffles. There's lots of you can call a restaurant that that uses them. Yep. And see if they'll sell you one. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. But there's also lots of great substitutes too for actual fresh truffle. There's really good quality truffle oils and different pastes and different things that you can get where you can get that flavor into whatever you're making. And
do you try to pretty much just use them when they're in season, or do you kind of?
Well, this is the thing. What people don't understand is that truffles are available all year.
Okay.
It's just different varieties have different seasons. Okay. Right. And again, unless you're connecting with that farmer or someone who's harvesting, you wouldn't know that. So we're getting 5 or 6 different types of truffles all year long. Wow. And it's amazing because everyone only knows the truffle as kind of like that petrol, that gasoline type flavor, intense. Yeah. Some truffles have none of that at all. Some of them taste like a button mushroom. Some taste like garlic. Wow. Yeah. Right. So there's all these different varieties, which is also neat because then we have to find different ways to use them, and they all don't have the same price point, which is nice too. So you can get something that's a bit more affordable. You won't get that here.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So next dish, we're going to do a dish called champagne eggs, and this is an interesting dish. Yeah. When I worked in London, I thought it'd be nice to do this today, especially with just the recent passing of the Queen. Of course. I worked for a chef named Anton Moziman, and he's one of the official caterers for the royal family. Okay. So we would often do events when I worked in London. For the royal family for events, and one of the first things I learned was eggs at breakfast. Oh, amazing! Right, and it was the first time I'd ever cooked eggs like this. I mean, I'd been cooking for 6 years, and I was like, oh, okay. Wow! And really, it is the most elegant and beautiful eggs you'll ever see. Just water, a little Bain Marie water bath, a bowl, and you put in your eggs. And can imagine we're doing an event for 40 people. There's a big bowl like this, and big pallets and big paddles and stirring the eggs. Yeah. Because this is not like throwing eggs in a frying pan and whipping them up in 30 seconds. No. This actually takes time because what we're doing is bringing these eggs in this water bath over the steam to the point where it's gently cooking. and we're moving the cooked egg that cooks to the pan back into the raw egg.
Okay.
So what you're going to end up with at the end of this is nothing like scrambled eggs you've seen before.
No.
They're going to be very like soft and saucy and luxurious, really.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to do this quite a bit, and it's not something that we can put on the menu at breakfast just because people don't want to wait for their eggs this long.
No.
Right.
So how long
Right.
does it take from start to finish?
This small amount will probably take a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to do for the masses, not so much.
Yeah, you're not going to put like a pot on for each person that's ordering,
No.
right?
We would
no.
actually. I have done it on a tasting menu
Okay.
where it's a bit more manageable, where you're just doing like a table of two. But if you see here, you can see kind of
Yeah.
it's starting to
It forms
curdle.
rivers.
Yeah. Right. Might go a little slower.
Yeah.
Yeah. See that?
Wow. Yeah.
And you just move it back into. So this is kind of like the fancy scrambled eggs that you can do at Sunday brunch when you have your family over or some friends over.
Yeah.
You can stand around the stove. And I mean, some chefs as well, I think will take a whisk and kind of break up the pieces
Right.
like so, just to give it a bit more body. And it's always important to season while you go.
So you had just eggs in there, no cream,
It's
no
just
butter,
eggs.
no,
Yeah,
just
just
eggs.
eggs.
Okay.
Now a little bit of salt. Maybe go a little tiny bit of pepper.
Chef's version of a little.
Yeah.
A pinch. A little taste. Needs a little more salt. And as you can see, we're almost there. Look at that.
Wow.
Now, the important thing here is to stop the cooking. And that's where the champagne comes in. And we're using a little Niagara sparkling white. So what this is going to do is it's going to cool down the eggs. And it's going to add a nice little bit of fresh acidity.
Now, does the acidity have much of an effect on the texture of the eggs?
Or
not?
Not so much. I mean, probably more on the palate.
Right. Yeah.
And then some nice fresh chives from the garden. And then from this point, you could go to town. You could do smoked salmon, smoked trout. You could add a little bit of crab or poached lobster.
Yeah.
You could add truffle,
Yes, of course.
right? Which quite often we do. Look at that! Isn't that beautiful?
It's wonderful.
Right?
Wow.
It's almost like it's almost like pudding.
Yeah, really.
Or porridge.
Soft and really nice.
Yeah.
Much nicer than your typical scrambled
yes.
eggs.
Well, you get that smell of champagne, just that little bit of, it's kind of,
really fragrant. Yeah, it's
Yep.
beautiful.
Yeah.
A little bit of sourdough bread. Isn't that beautiful?
Great.
And that's it, just simple like that. Right? If we wanted to, we could add a bit more garden flavors. But no, we'll just keep it simple like that.
That's beautiful.
And that one's on page 245.
245. Okay.
Yeah, and it's fun actually. In the book, I'll show you on 245. We really Langdon Hall is an old building. It was built at the end of the 18th century, and we really wanted to. My cooking is very classically rooted in training, but I try to be a bit more modern with my approach. And we wanted to kind of show that juxtaposition between the history of the building and the food.
Oh, great.
And we found a great idea. Let's see if I can find. Yeah. So this is actually a painting of the lady of the house in her hunting gear.
Oh my goodness.
Right, and we laid it down and built this scrambled eggs onto her chest.
Oh, that's
Yeah, just kind of put it together. So through the book, there's different pieces of art that are featured as the platform for the food.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So how long? I mean, this book must have been quite the project.
Yes.
So how long of a process was it? What was the kind of workload of taking this on? And
Oh my gosh, This part is easy.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's such a busy place, Langdon Hall.
Of course,
I have
yeah.
a lot going on, and it wasn't actually. I think every chef dreams of having their own book.
Yeah. I'm
But
sure.
it never was actually a dream that I thought I'd ever pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Penguin Random House actually came to me and said, "Listen, we really want you to do a book. We'd like to
Wow.
to join and collaborate on this with you." And for the longest time, I kind of like hummed and hawed about it. And finally, Langdon Hall was very supportive and said, "We would love to do this with you." And so I said, "Okay, great. If we're going to do this, it's got to be here at work. I can't go to a studio anywhere and recreate things.
Yeah.
I have the recipes are here, the product is here. So every 3 months, journalist Chris Johns, the co-author, the photographer Colin Faulkner, and then all of our props and everything came to the hotel for 3 days. And for each day, we shot. We did a little studio in one of our side rooms, and we shot 7 to 8 dishes each day.
Wow.
For 3 days.
Wow.
For like 14, I guess it was for 14 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and that part was brilliant. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
We selected dishes from all the different menus and kind of redesigned them to make sense in this book. And it was kind of challenging in the beginning. I really didn't know where to begin. We offer so many things. We were doing afternoon tea, and we were doing breakfast and weddings and a pool menu and children's menus and canapes and so what kind of format do we do? And it just kind of kept it very seasonal and fluid and try to keep everything. I mean, they are recipes that we were doing in the restaurant. So some of them have a very high difficulty level. We've tried to really pare it down so that it's manageable at home, but there are some recipes that will take you 2 or 3 days to make, just because you need to reduce things for a period of time and do these things. But there's also recipes like this that take you a couple of minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Of
course, nice variety.
But that part was fantastic. The writing was difficult because I speak like a chef. Right.
Yeah.
And I talk about technique and process and all these things. And the editor really wanted me to not use anything.
Kind of more plain language.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Don't even use the word saute.
Wow. Okay.
Spell it out. So what is saute?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of changed the way I write recipes.
Right.
For sure. And it was a little bit of headbutting in the beginning because I was like, this is ridiculous. But the fact was that people at my level of cooking and at a high level of cooking would know what saute means, but people who'd never cooked before wouldn't.
Yeah.
So we really want to make it as approachable as possible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, that's really nice. Yeah, because you wonder when it's it's something as high caliber as Langdon Hall, you kind of think, oh, well, it's a beautiful book, but I would never make anything from that, right? So you kind of get. It's nice that it's in that language that any home chef can understand, right? And kind of relate to. That's
I think we've had great feedback and lots of success with people recreating the recipes, which is great. We actually had the first kind of edit of recipes sent to Conestoga College, and they did a whole curriculum around testing the recipes for us, which was great, which was fantastic. And then we did a lot of testing back at Langdon Hall as well, obviously. And actually the pandemic was very helpful for me in terms of giving me a chance to actually focus on it for a little bit,
kind of shifting gears.
because I think I was probably the first author that they'd had miss 2 deadlines.
Oh.
Right? And I was like, well, what are the authors running Langdon Hall? Come on.
You know what I mean? Things going on.
Yeah. But no, we're really proud and very happy with how it turned out.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I know we've got some people with us here in the room today, and then we've also got some people joining us online virtually. So I think we'll open the floor up if you're comfortable to any questions the audience might have.
Of course.
So if anybody in the room would like to start off, or if we have some from our online viewers. Yeah.
So this is a question from someone who's not in the room.
Okay.
But I want to know the answer too. So we're interested in what are the ingredients that are so special to this place? What makes this area of southwestern Ontario special in terms of ingredients for you?
I don't think it's an ingredient. I think it's terroir. I think for me the what makes this place, especially Langdon Hall, we're sitting on ancient Carolinian forest. There's something so special about that. And in the process, going back to the carrots and how we tested all these carrots from all around, when we ate the carrot that blew all our minds, I said to the gardener, how? And he said, it's pH level, it's soil, it's the soil, it's the terroir. And I think that's what makes things special out here. And that's why we have such amazing produce and amazing ingredients in our region. It's the land. And I think that's that's why it's so important for us to protect that land and make sure that we are doing things in a way that is healthy for our soil, and we're looking at choices that we make in terms of what we're selecting, and even as a consumer, right? The consumers, it's important for them to know how they contribute to our community as well, and they contribute to supporting our local farmers and
yeah, for sure.
so on.
I have we'll take some more questions from the audience, but I had a follow-up to that as well, because you were talking, obviously we've used this word kind of taste of place and terroir kind of interchangeably. And I feel like a lot of people know terroir in relation to wine a lot of the time. So how do you kind of, do you find that kind of a similar definition, taste of place and terroir, and how do you relate to the wines that you have in your dish? Maybe when you pair wines in certain dishes, if you do any of that, how do you kind of incorporate the wine scene in Canada to your terroir?
Yeah, well, 100%. I think you're right. Like, people more associate terroir to wine because we're trying to figure out the flavor of the wine. Yes. Well, how's it any different for a tomato?
Of course.
Or a cucumber or corn or whatever. I think, for sure. Just, there are cases where the food matches the wine because of the terroir, but a lot of cases it doesn't go that way, right? I think obviously we're looking at sourcing the best Canadian wine that we can, and wine from Ontario, to pair with the food for sure. Sometimes though you can't beat an amazing pairing, and it might be a wine from Italy and not from
Oh, of course. And drink what you like.
Not from Prince Edward County.
Yeah. Amazing. Sorry, so we'll go back to some questions from the audience then, or anyone online. Of course.
Truffles. When are we going to get Canadian truffles?
I don't know. I mean, we have them, right? I'm sure if you dig deep enough, you'll find some. They're just not going to be very good.
That's selling them only on Salt Spring Island.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, I think it takes a long time for the farm to mature. I know that I actually heard a rumor a few years ago that there was an Ontario couple that had started planting as well. I haven't heard anything yet. I did hear about the Salt Spring Island truffles, and I heard they were pretty good.
Well, I heard trees are about this big right now. They're on a Wales farm, north of Elora, and Mom planted them.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they're meant more so for the grandchildren.
Oh yeah, of course.
The children.
Yeah.
50 years from now, there might be something there.
No, I heard there is. I heard there was something that was harvested in BC. I don't know the details because I just okay, great. Let me know when it's ready.
From here.
Yeah, amazing.
That would be great.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm the online filter. No, my great ideas. So I have two. One is how you and your staff fared during the ongoing pandemic.
Luckily, we held on to probably 90% of our staff. I think we had to stay connected. We didn't. We would do weekly Zooms and kind of, keep in touch. We're not really the type of establishment that can do takeout. I think we got to a point where we had like an online shop, and what we would do is I'd write a menu, and we would send it out on like Monday or Sunday. And it would be a 3-course menu, and you would go online and you could order it and you could pick it up the following Saturday. So it gave us time to kind of collect orders, order exactly what we need, and produce it and have people come and pick it up. And it was actually quite popular. We had about 100 people pick up from all over, from Niagara, from London, from Toronto, from like local. And when they came in to purchase their 3-course meal, we also had our wine cellar open and our cheese cave open and our bakery open, and so we did very well that way. Yeah, and I think it was just staying connected, really. I think like everybody, we all kind of got new hobbies, and everyone worked on their sourdough bread and maybe put on a few pounds. But we were all very excited to get back. That's for sure. And whenever the hotel could be open, we were instantly busy because we were in a location that is already socially distanced and 75 acres of walking trails and the beautiful gardens and everything else that comes along with it. And even when we could only do in-room dining, we had we would have up to almost 50% of the hotel full, with people just enjoying the property and then having a dining room table in their hotel room where they would order room service.
That's great.
Yeah. And now, no one can get married for 3 years. So it is wedding central, and we're fully booked until next year. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I think a great testament to the business as well, that so many of your staff were able to stay on, and we're happy to come back and excited to come back. I think that's fantastic.
I think even just before the pandemic, a big focus of my personal goals and goals for work was to really create an environment for our staff that was better than anywhere else.
Amazing.
Right, to really focus on, I labeled our people the new VIPs, right, and it's really focusing on their well-being and creating an environment where, I mean, I worked in Europe for a couple of years, and there's no way I could survive on what I was getting paid. I was there a lot of in our industry. A lot of people go to work in a place where sometimes even for free to get experience to build their career somewhere else.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is create an environment where you don't need to leave. You can start a family. You can have a life and have a career and stay with us at Langdon. And I mean, where else would you want to go with this beautiful garden and everything made from scratch, from the butter to the bread? There's it's a school in itself.
Yeah, its own little.
You could
campus.
a cook could spend easily 5 years, 6 years, studying on everything that we do at the hotel, and even spend some time in the garden.
Yeah.
Now we send out a lot of our team in the winter and in the spring to help in the garden and help move the soil and plant. And they're a big part of the harvest now. So it's really quite a special environment.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, talking about terroir, so one of the research areas that I look at is terroir and wine and how it impacts what we eat and drink and food. And when we think of, changing, in French, a lot of the French wine regions are now starting to see changes in the temperature. And so they can't grow the grapes that used to be native to them. And so we're starting to see this change. And you talk to agriculturalists and they see this change. But no one's talking to the chefs and asking, how is climate change impacting your menus and what you cook and what you eat?
It impacts everything. I mean, it impacts even just our own harvest in our garden. Yeah. Right. And what we're able to get, what's available, what's not available. I mean, there's talk of with all the drought and everything else that's going on. I mean, climate change is a big deal. And I heard that we may have lost a whole bunch of rice. In Italy, risotto, right? Yeah. It definitely affects what we do and what we're able to do, and I think that even coming out of the first of the lockdowns and the pandemic, even just sourcing Canadian products was really difficult. Yeah. So I mean, that's always going to be something that we have to be aware of, and I think that's why it's really important to focus on supporting local and really making sure that our communities are doing what they can to secure our biodiversity and kind of what we have in each of our terroirs.
For sure.
Yeah. Kind of building on that question, actually, and the direction you kind of took that conversation. So what to you then do you think is kind of the future of Canadian cuisine? Keeping in mind kind of how things are going to change climate-wise, and also just how long you've been in the industry and what you've seen develop over the years. Like, what to you? Where are we going?
Well, I feel like we're kind of on the right path. I feel my focus is always supporting our farmers and sustainability, and I feel like that is becoming a bigger conversation, and it's being more recognized, and I feel like, I mean, really maintaining and bettering, if we can, our environment and climate and everything right now is kind of the focus. And I think that has to do with not just the kitchen, it's government, it's everyone, right? It's I mean, that's kind of the future of food, and if we want to maintain what we have, we need to put the effort into making sure that we protect it.
For sure. Yeah, and what a great way to kind of bring awareness to things like that, like climate change and bettering the environment through food. Something that everyone can relate to. And
well, I think chefs have such a huge voice, and they don't realize it, and they have the power. I'm cooking great food, and people are having delicious meals, but more importantly, I'm teaching the next generation of cooks and hopefully the guests about why we're sourcing these ingredients, and it's so delicious because it's from the garden and it's from here, and And really, you know, we have to shout out. We have to make some noise,
For sure.
right? Because there's a lot of people that don't realize what's happening.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
there's
definitely.
I do a lot of speaking at schools, and even for the younger grades, you know, the first question is where do tomatoes come from? You know, and a lot of them are like, oh, the superstore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
of course,
and then it's a whole conversation about the farm. It's a whole conversation about the farmer and the farmer's kid that's in the classroom. You know, it's really it's an important conversation at all levels.
Well, thank you for having that conversation
Yeah.
and for having it with us today too. Oh, we have another question. Great. Sorry,
Sure.
I was reading the audience here.
So there's one more question from the online audience that I think is an important one. Just they're wondering, when does the fall menu appear at Langdon Hall? When do you launch that?
Yeah.
And the timeline of that, and then also, can you do a tasting menu at Langdon Hall?
Yeah. So tasting menus we do since it's really interesting. I sit on the World Culinary Council for Relais Chateau representing Canada, and we get together as a group every year. We're actually getting together next year in Italy, or next month in Italy, and we discuss kind of like the challenges at all properties across the globe, and we bring back solutions and try to work with our delegates in each of our countries. And one of the big things was we didn't think coming out of the pandemic that anyone would want tasting menus anymore. No one would want to sit at a table for 3 hours. You know, like people would want healthy and quick, and we were completely wrong, right? As soon as people got back into restaurants, they wanted the expensive champagne. They didn't want to leave the table. They wanted tasting menus, but and we were so busy that when we could only do outdoor dining, we could only feed half our guests, and the rest would have to eat in the rooms because at room service because we were taking up too much time with tasting menus for everyone.
Right.
So we pulled the tasting menu off. Right now, the tasting menu is available by request. We do probably a dozen tasting menus a night, and I'm writing a new one. We just got to figure out how it works in our breakdown for our reservations because we're just so busy now. Yeah. What one might do is just have a limit, like we only do like 20 a night or something, and then we'll manage it that way. What was the other question?
Fall menu.
Oh, fall menu. Yeah. So the menu is a big process at Langdon Hall. We are constantly testing dishes. I mean, with the launch of the cookbook, we are featuring recipes from the book to kind of promote the book. Right now, we are deep in menu planning and discussions, and typically the deadline we kind of roll it out Thanksgiving. But I imagine we'll probably go a bit sooner than that. We've got a pretty good base down. I mean, it's not just one menu, right? It's so many. It's room service and the bar menu and breakfast and lunch and dinner and events, and there's a lot of menus. Yeah, but they are on their way.
Coming soon.
And very exciting.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think that's going to be pretty much it for our chat today. So I just want to give you a chance, Jason. So if anybody watching online or in the room would like to kind of follow along with your work, I know you're pretty active on social media. Is there anywhere you want to share a handle that someone can follow along?
Yeah, just
connect with?
Chef Bangerter.
Perfect. Easy.
At Chef Bangerter is pretty much all my stuff.
Okay, amazing. So if you'd like to follow along with his work, that's a great way to do so. So I want to say thank you so much for our in-person and our virtual audience for joining us today. As a reminder, today was an event that's a part of our Deep Dish Dialogue series. So we will be doing one of these every month, usually around the third Thursday. Sometimes it varies. And they are events that are put together, diving into some impactful subjects around food. And they're in partnership with the Aero Food Institute at the University of Guelph, as well as the School of Hospitality, Food and Tourism Management at the University of Guelph. So our future events coming up for the fall are going to be on butchery, food pricing, and wine. And you can visit the aerofoodinstitute.ca to find more information and links to the events. So thank you so much once again, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.